Hello everyone and welcome back to the Music Dungeon with me, Mac Plays Banjo. Today we're going to continue to watch the Bela Fleck interview from Rick Beato's channel. If you haven't seen part 1, go check it out. They're all going to be in a playlist, so you can just go find that. But let's just get straight into it. So just for context, when we let off last time, Bela was talking about 2-5-1 progressions and voicings. Let's go back here a second to Rick's question.
System of the banjo neck.
And how do you, if you're playing over, let's say, a 2-5-1 in a key,
Yeah.
and how do you pick out what notes to play in the voicings, and how do you?
Right. Well, you know, as I got to know more about jazz, I discovered that most people, if they have an A minor to D7, that most people don't go. They might go. You know, you pick 3 or 4 notes.
Yeah.
And so the coolest compers didn't play big chords. So
Right.
I thought, well, and then when I heard Chick Corea playing also, he was just such a judicious player. He played with a lot of rhythm. The rhythm was as important as the notes, and a lot of times there were these little jabs. I was like, I think I could do that.
Yeah.
I can play 3 notes. Because that's all I can play at one time, unless I start strumming, which is against my religion. But yeah, so I you know, you can pluck 3, and usually that's enough, especially if you're in a band, someone's playing bass. You know, maybe you want to stay out of all the notes they're playing. With the Flecktones, we were conversational.
That's a really good point, because if you are just using a thumb and 2 fingers, you do need to be judicious about what notes you play in chord voicings if you're not just hitting like open positions all the time. So yeah, good stuff from Bela. That might be a good topic for a practice log at some point, but we'll let me know if you want to talk about that in a practice log at some point, I guess.
Enough about our music that we could discuss it. Okay, Victor, you're going to be in. You can play these notes on this chord, and I'm going to be in these notes, and we're going to create the sound of a piano between the two of us, and you know, and that worked well because we had these regions of the harmony that we were responsible for, and that we could be free in. But it would work, especially when Howard was playing harmonica.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was at the piano, it was a different story. We were more of a conventional band with a banjo in it.
Right.
Because it freed us in certain ways, but it also limited us in certain ways. And when he was on the harp, the harmony was all me and Victor. So we could really have a
Right.
lot of... and when you listen back to that stuff, you know, it's not such complicated stuff. It's just very particular what
Right.
we chose to do, and that's what gives it its color and its own sound, I think.
You were also playing here when you're warming up. You're playing the augmented sounds, augmented
Yeah.
scale, and things like that.
Right.
There's that Rick Beato ear training course coming in. He knows augmented scales when he hears them.
So
Yeah.
those types of scales, diminished scales, because you were doing all of this type of harmony in the pieces that you were playing
Yeah.
live. Talk about kind of developing those type of sounds. I mean, beyond the major scales and things.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is like voice leading.
Yeah.
Like, because if you're playing and you change one note, then now you're in a great place to move to somewhere else. Now what will I do? Oh, nice. We'll land on F. But part of it is I know enough about what's there to have. I've got some strategies now how to get through that kind of stuff. But it also came very naturally. I've always just enjoyed just moving a finger and seeing what happened. But then what? You know, that's the problem. So and in terms of really knowing what I'm doing, I mean, a lot of it is intuitive, and I can kind of identify it, but I don't quite know what I'm going to do. And I hope that.
From everything I've heard about Bela, with his improvisation and everything I've heard him talk about, it does seem like he really has an intuitive sense of improvisation. I mean, he knows his theory for sure, but it's not like he's thinking of the theory as he's playing. It's very, very much intuitive, as opposed to him thinking like, oh, okay, I have an F major 7 chord here, so I'm going to play a scale associated with that, or, you know, all those sorts of things. It's much more free-form and intuitive for him, I think, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, it works great, but that's kind of different from how a lot of other people do it, where a lot of other people will have a lot of theory basis that they are thinking about maybe not as they're playing, but it's at least in the back of their minds, and they practice it all and everything. And maybe the real is that Bela has studied all that stuff so much that it's just become ingrained in him as a person, and he doesn't have to think about it anymore. I don't know. I'm not at that level, but that's interesting how I've heard different players of pretty equal capabilities have totally different systems for improvisation, where Bela's is really like, oh, I have an idea of what I'm doing, but I'm not like totally sure, whereas other players would be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what scale I'm playing over every single chord and that sort of thing. So different strokes for different folks.
That's a positive because I'm kind of stuck. That's what I am. Now there's some people who play and they know exactly what they're doing and why it works.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
I'm pretty convinced it's going to work, but I'm not exactly sure why. But then afterward, I could go back and figure out, oh, well, that's why it worked, and that's why I knew it would work. Because
I get the feeling that Rick Beato is one of those people where he knows every single scale he's playing and why it works theoretically.
it's, connected.
So you did a version of Rhapsody in Blue. You have a new record coming out.
Yeah.
On February 12th, the
Right.
100th anniversary.
That's right. Taking the banjo out of the rhythm section, putting it up front. Because banjo was in the original piece, but just strumming.
Which is illegal.
In this basement, strumming the banjo is
Okay, so how did you come up
highly
with the
unpopular.
How did you come up with the arrangement for this
Right.
record that's going?
Fun fact, the first Bela Fleck concert I ever saw was him performing Rhapsody in Blue, which was like, wow. I mean, I think it was like 2 years ago-ish. But yeah, that was a very special moment for me in my banjo playing career, watching him walk out on stage for the first time. It was pretty wild.
To be coming out.
Okay, so here's what happened. This is really kind of interesting. Well, it could be a long story or short, depending on how you edit it, which is fine with me. But it all started in New York City when I was maybe 5, 7, 8 years old. My uncle Steve took me to see old movies at a place called Bathalia. It's out next to the Symphony Space. Used to be the Symphony Theater. And one time he took me to, and we'd see Marx Brothers movies, and we'd see Fred Astaire and all this kind of stuff. He was just showing us how great all that stuff was, which I loved. I just loved. So one day he took us to see Rhapsody in Blue, and it was one of those aha moments where, like, oh, I was so blown away by that movie. I'm sure if I looked at it now, it's probably a crap movie, but I've heard people say it's not a great movie, but I haven't seen it since then. All I know is the piece knocked me out. George Gershwin knocked me out. It was just sort of, I wasn't really a musician yet, and it had a big impact. So through the years, I always kept in touch with it. Like every once in a while, I'd go listen to a recording and like, oh, God, I wish I could play something like that on the banjo. That's just so cool, but it ain't gonna happen. And even in fact, when I was a senior in high school, I was in the chorus because they had to put me somewhere in school, and I couldn't play any legit instruments. I got a call from the
Relatable. Don't play any legit instruments. Yeah, all banjo players understand this.
principal to come up and talk to them in my senior year.
All banjo players who have interacted with musicians outside of the bluegrass world understand this, I should say.
And I thought I was going to be expelled or something. But they said the semi-annual, the final concert is going to be Rhapsody in Blue, and we found this banjo part in there in the score with all the other parts. Do you think you could play this? Because if you can, you could get out of chorus till you're out of school. And I was like, I think I can, and I'll stay in chorus. So because by that time, there was probably some girls I was in love with, or for some reason I didn't want to go. So that was my first experience.
It's the only
with it.
good reason to stay
I had
in
the banjo
chorus.
part, the original banjo part, which is again some strum stuff. I could never play a note of it and make a sense of it, and even on the performance, I didn't know what I was doing. But anyway, as part of
Another
the Rhapsody
relatable thing.
pull, I loved the piece, and I thought it was cool. And now I'd been on stage with an orchestra doing it, even though I couldn't play the banjo part on this instrument. It's the wrong banjo, even if I could read, which I can't. So as years went by, I kept listening to it, occasionally loving it, and going, oh, I'd love to know how to do that. And then the pandemic came. But before the pandemic, I was fortunate enough to connect with my wife, Abigail Washburn, who's the best thing that ever happened to me since this. And at any rate, she went to Colorado College, and there was a guy who went to Colorado College with her named Ryan Benale. And he had written a book about Rhapsody in Blue called Arranging Gershwin. And so when we were there and she did the commencement speech,
Okay.
and this guy said, oh, well, I just thought I'd give you this book since he knew Abby and stuff, and he gave me the book. And I was like, oh, man, I love Rhapsody in Blue. So I read this book.
Maybe I should pick
and
up
it's
this
all about
book.
all these.
Let's check it out, shall we? All right, here here we are, Arranging Gershwin by Ryan Benale, I think. Chapter on Bernstein forwards. Oh my gosh. Considers the use of Rhapsody by United Airlines. Considers what? They just use. What do you consider it? Every time I get off a United flight, they play this song. Let's consider that. I'm sure it's very academic and all this, but interesting. Cool. I might. $34. I might pick it up on sale at some point. But we'll see. That's cool.
These different ways people have done it over the years. It's all about Gershwin writing it on the train and, up to Boston and coming back. And in the last 2 weeks before it was due, realizing it was due and he better go ahead and write it if he was going to have a show and all this stuff. So that was fascinating to me. And then the pandemic.
I believe Rhapsody was just like foisted on Gershwin. Like he was, I think the concert promoter said that Gershwin was going to have this new piece before Gershwin agreed to it or something, and so he had to write it in 2 weeks or some craziness like that.
Pandemic hits, and I'm stuck in this basement. And I do have my family. I wasn't stuck. I mean, I needed to do a certain amount of work on something just for my sanity, and so I got in touch with Ryan and asked him if he had, if there's any chance he could find me a score for the piece. And he sent me the original score, the marked up Paul Whiteman score, which I looked at it for a while and I was like, okay, this is great, but I still can't read. So is there any chance you could get me a Sibelius file of it, which would have, there's banjo tablature in Sibelius, so I can copy and paste the piano score and put it on a banjo and look at numbers, which I can relate to. Right. Again, because a D could be here, 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 or here, and the tuning is such.
See how quickly and effortlessly he did that, guys? He could probably do that with literally any note that you called out. He could play it on all 4 strings in every position. Again, just like showing his fluency on the neck, and where you need to get if you want to play like him.
Such that so many different ways to play the same note. Sight reading is a nightmare on the banjo. I need to know where the note is more than I need to know what it is, right. Which is part of why my grasp of harmony is suspect, because I don't always know what I'm playing. I just know what it sounds like. So at any rate, he gets me a Sibelius file, and I start looking at the piano part, and I had to copy it onto 3 banjos because there's so much in that piano part with 10 fingers all the time. Some of it was very dense.
Yes.
So I copied it onto 3, and I would erase the parts that were on the other ones. So very, very workaround, do-it-yourself kind of work. But eventually I got the first phrase, and I figured out, oh, okay. I got to play the melody. What else can I get? I've only got 3 fingers to pluck. What can I do? And I figured out, and I got the first measure. I was like, oh, that's cool. I can play the first measure of Rhapsody in Blue. Isn't that cool? I was really thrilled, after all those years. And so and then as the pandemic went on, each week I'd work on another measure. Sometimes it would take me 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Sometimes it would happen in an afternoon, and I'd get a workable version of each measure. And after some time, I don't know, 6 months, a year, this pet project of mine I was doing really just for me, I could say that some version of Rhapsody in Blue could be played on the banjo. I couldn't play it yet, and what I had created was only the beginning of the manuscript it would need to be for me to play it. It was a lot would have to happen. Right around that time, I got a call from Alan Valentine, who is the CEO of the Nashville Symphony, and I've done concertos for him, and we're friendly, and he'd asked me about something. Maybe he wanted a signed banjo for a benefit or something like that, and I said, oh, by the way, you're going to think this is funny, but I'm working on Rhapsody in Blue piano part. I think I'm going to try to figure out if it's possible to play. He said, great idea. We'll book it for the opening of the season in September, coming up in 9 months from now. I was like, oh, okay. So now I had a time limit. I had to learn it, and I had to get it together and figure out how to play it. And so I did. I just did the work to do it. And then when I realized that I was going to be doing all this work and that it was about to be the 100th anniversary of the piece, that I should record it while my fingers knew it, while my brain and because as hard as it was going to be to learn, I'd better get it down. So, because that's most of the work. If you can get something up to a point where you can play it in front of a symphony, you're pretty much
there.
If you wait a year, you're going to have to get it all back.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all going to go away, and you're going to be going back to square one and trying to get it all back. So we managed to pull it off. We got it recorded, and then I started thinking about this Rhapsody in Bluegrass. Oh, what a terrible, horrible thing occurred to me, And so I didn't tell anybody about this idea that was going through my head, but I called Brian Sutton. You know who Brian is?
Yeah.
Great guitar player, and he's in my Bluegrass Heart, which is this bluegrass ensemble. I haven't played bluegrass for 23 years, but this year I brought a bluegrass ensemble out and really had an incredible time doing it with Sierra Hull, Michael Cleveland, Mark Schatz. A lot of great people played. So at any rate, I said, can you just come over to the house for a couple of hours, and didn't tell anybody.
Great record. Phenomenal stuff. Wonderful band.
You were doing, and I wrote out like a chord chart of like what guitar might do if I was playing the banjo part. And so we just got it out and started playing through the piece and jotting down chord changes and making a few arrangement ideas. And to my surprise, it sounded great. As soon as he started playing Tony Rice style rhythm, which is a profound style of rhythm bluegrass guitar, all of a sudden, once again, I could say, this could be done and it could be good and it wouldn't be bad. It wouldn't be bad. It doesn't have to be a horrible idea. And because it sounds...
Rick is so engaged in this conversation. If you watch his head, it's like constant. And he's switching up the rhythm and stuff too. So it's not always slow nodding. Sometimes he's like fast nods and he's really using body language. I appreciate that. Maybe I should do that more.
It's like a horrible idea. Maybe we should do it because, nobody's expecting anything good out of it. So that's a nice place to be when you're making art. If nobody. That's the great thing about playing banjo. Nobody expects it to be any good.
Does this make it more engaging, guys? Okay. Okay. What is Bela saying?
So that's a nice place to be when you're making art. If nobody. That's the great thing about playing banjo. Nobody expects it to be any good. So if I do something that's a little better than half-assed, they think it's awesome. Like you, for instance.
Well, when you...
Oof. Yeah. Words of wisdom from Bela here. That is very, very true.
When you played Rhapsody in Blue, I thought,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. Especially with the amount of notes that the original has, and then you're limiting it to the 5 strings here and it was such a creative, beautiful. Yeah, could you play a little bit of it?
I can try.
Okay.
Yeah. There's some of it.
Oh, it's so crazy that it's even possible on banjo. Oh my gosh, his tone is so good. Wow. Wow, that is not easy to play. I mean, you guys know that, but that is playing it with that kind of tone is just inspiring. Really, it really is. I was in the banjo orchestra for the Blue Ridge Banjo Camp. It was a couple of years ago, and they did Rhapsody in Blue right after his album came out. So I was one of the grunts in the orchestra when Bela played that, and it was just great watching him play it like 20 times throughout a week. So I got to really watch him play that a lot, and I'll probably learn it someday. Not right now because I have pretty focused goals with practice right now, but someday I would love to learn that whole arrangement, and I'll be really thankful to Rick Beato for having a great angle on his hands while he played this part, so I can just copy all the Bela's fingerings. So anyway, gorgeous stuff. That his tone, what I was most impressed with there is the tone, because it was exquisite. But geez, that was so good.
That is amazing. Some of the linear things that go up the neck, and then the voice leading when you do the contrary motion, those sections are so...
it's like you have to use everything we've talked about.
Yeah.
About banjo playing to get through that, because some of it you're doing the melodic style, like this stuff. That's all technically.
That sounds so good.
Thank you.
And
well, the hope is that when you move it over, that it brings out something different in the piece. And the best thing that someone could say is it sounded right, like it was supposed to be on the banjo, not like it's been forced onto it and it doesn't really fit. But that's what I'm going for, is just for it to sound like it's supposed to be there.
It sounded to me like it was a banjo, like it was written for the banjo when you played it.
It was a banjo time. Remember, this was when that piece was written. It was a banjo time. Banjo was the most popular instrument in that part of the world at that time. There were banjo orchestras.
How times have fallen. Our culture is truly dead. There's no hope for the younger generation. They like guitars now, and by younger generation, I mean older than me. Banjo fell out of favor like 100 years ago. So, yeah, the younger generation 100 years ago.
It was part of Louis Armstrong's music, Jelly Roll Morton's music. There was the folk music. There was early blues that was played on the banjo.
Yeah.
Of course, all this African stuff, because the banjo coming from Africa. It was in folk music and pre-bluegrass, old-time music, all of these different fiddle music, all this different stuff. The banjo was everywhere, and their guitar was really not on the scene.
Right.
And at some point, I met a guy named Danny Barker. I don't know if you know about Danny Barker, but he was a banjo player who played with Cab Calloway, and he was there when all this stuff happened. He said that a record came out, a jazz record, and instead of banjo, someone played a guitar, and nobody really heard guitar before. It was a new thing. And he said the minute it happened, it was like every banjo player was out of work. Every single one. Nobody wanted the banjo anymore. Because there was this whole connotation of the banjo as being something that white folks used to...
The darkest day in the history of the banjo. When someone played a guitar on a jazz record and everyone unanimously decided that guitar was better. That was the Lucifer falling out of heaven moment for banjo players.
To make fun of black people with. They put on blackface, get out banjos, and sing some songs about how great it was on the old plantation, as if it was great on the old plantation for the black folks. That was pretty distasteful. So this banjo, unfortunately, that actually belongs to those folks, became connected to their oppressors. And that's really unfortunate for the instrument, and also should be part of their culture. It's theirs, you know. In fact, Gibson makes a thing. I don't know if anybody out there has ever heard of a tenor guitar, but a tenor guitar is a 4-string guitar, and Gibson made this for all the banjo players that were out of work, so they could play in a banjo tuning and play guitar while they made their transition to learning to play guitar. And this guy, Danny Barker, eventually learned to play 6-string guitar and didn't play banjo for many years.
Now that is called capitalizing on an opportunity. Good job, Gibson.
And then he was playing guitar for Cab Calloway, and the Vega company said, hey, we'll give you a free banjo if you will play it on one song in the Cab Calloway show. And he went to Cab, and Cab said, no, sir, we've been trying to get away from that thing for a long time, and we don't want it back now. So he wouldn't let him play it. So that's where black people were at with it at that point. And so a lot of black folks have no idea that the banjo is African heritage.
We talked about playing Bach on the banjo.
It's the best music ever.
Rick, just left turn.
And, you know,
I say left turn and then I do this. Am I dyslexic? No, I'm not.
It traverses the key.
Not dyslexic, just dumb.
He's so beautifully and uses all the notes in a time when nobody was writing that way, and nobody has done it any better. Like the first guy on the block knew what to do somehow, right? Like Earl Scruggs coming along, being the first guy to play the banjo with the 3 fingers, and nobody really has ever touched him. I would say Bach was the Earl Scruggs of harmony.
Quote of the year.
But some people might like Bach better than Earl Scruggs. I would understand that too. Yeah.
But the
like
challenges of playing things like that on the banjo.
Okay, back to the banjo. So the thing is, again, we have this problem that I can't get too much under my hands.
Right.
Right, I can only get an octave or so. This stuff's going to go all over an instrument. The other problem is that unlike something like, for instance, Paganini, you don't want to change the octaves to get it on the instrument, because there's so much logic to Bach's music that if you suddenly drop an octave, you've kind of maybe you just shouldn't play that
the
piece.
voice leading or whatever.
Yeah.
So what he means by this is if there is a Bach piece that has a range that's too wide for the banjo, like you can play it all but like a couple phrases, and those phrases are too high, you really shouldn't just take those 2 high phrases and then throw them down an octave so that you can get them on the instrument, because there's so much logic in Bach that you're going to destroy some part of the piece by just swapping those phrases down an octave, which is totally fair. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, it destroys the whole direction. So for me, it's always been about finding a Bach piece that fits the range that I can get from here to here.
Right.
So and change, if I have to change 1 or 2 notes, they have to be notes that can be changed and they don't destroy the piece. So I have a few of them that I play. They're the best finger exercises I can think of, and they also teach me about music and where things lay on the instrument. I'll play one.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. Beautiful.
That teaches.
Speaking of good tone, oh my gosh. That's another song that I'm going to learn at some point. Not anytime soon, because that doesn't, like I said, it doesn't fit my practice goals right now, but that is another piece I want to learn. I do have the name of that written down somewhere, because they don't say the name of the piece in this interview, but Brandon from Banjo Camp plays this, and he told me the name of it, so I have it written down somewhere. Not going to say his last name, but Brandon, if you're watching this, you know who you are. Thanks for telling me the name of this piece. Yeah, it's really beautiful and a great finger exercise, as Bela is going to say, and I'm going to learn it at some point. If you want to know the name of that, I can dig through my notes and I'll comment it. Just, yeah.
Teaches me so much about the banjo because all of these things, just take any section. That's like a fingering exercise, like from God, literally.
Yeah.
It teaches me so much about how to get around the instrument. It teaches me, oh, there's minor scale, and what I have was that, like minor 6, and then another minor 6.
Rick Beato knows it's a minor 6 because he's taken the Rick Beato ear training course.
It just teaches me so much. Something like those kinds of things that are all through Bach's. They're all things that can be used in jazz. And
a really awesome part of Bela's playing is that if you know what he's studying, you can look through his solos and his playing, and you will find it in there. So all these Bach phrases are just part of his lexicon that he can pull stuff out of. So if you pay really close attention to a lot of his solos, you'll hear little sprinklings of Bach phrases, or I think it's in one of his solos from Live at the Quick. Hold on, what song is that? Hold on. Okay. So it's Hoedown from Live at the Quick. I'm not gonna go into it now because this video has been going on for a long time, but one of the tabla player that's on stage, I don't remember his name. It's not Zakir Hussain. But the tabla player on stage, they do a section where he's throwing rhythms back and forth with Bela. And he does, I think it's Takadimi, if I can remember correctly. If I'm messing that up, I apologize. I'm not into Indian music yet. But he has all these different rhythms, and then he and Bela are doing it back and forth with rhythms. And then Bela does a solo after that, and Bela is throwing in those rhythms into that solo without like doing it explicitly back and forth. And then if you go back and listen through his solos through the rest of the record, you can hear those little rhythmic ideas coming out in all his solos because he's like learning from the tabla player and taking those rhythms and applying them to his solos, which is so cool. The deeper you study Bela's solos, the more you will find. I don't know, I haven't found an end to how much detail and depth go into his solos. It's mind-blowing stuff.
Bluegrass even, but they teach me about the fingerboard in a way that Scruggs style doesn't, melodic style doesn't, and even my regular scale work, which tends to be, foolishly on my part, in positions. It teaches me how to get out of the positions and play real music. So I find it to be real helpful.
Now, we talked about Charlie Parker and Bach and the kind of...
Okay, I think that's a pretty good place to call it. I've been recording for 40 minutes now. But yeah, that was a good part 2. How much time do we have left? We have like 40 minutes left, so probably just one more longer episode on this interview. But yeah, really good stuff. Tons to learn here. Everything Bela says you can learn from, almost everything he says. But yeah, this is a masterclass. Rick is doing a phenomenal job interviewing. Bela is doing a phenomenal job explaining his mindset and process with playing. So really just an A+ job all around. Like I said, if you want to watch the first part, you can go find it on my channel. It'll be on a playlist called like Rick Beato, Bela Fleck interview. If you want to watch the third part, well, I haven't recorded it yet, but it will be out and in that playlist as well, so you can go watch all 3 parts. But thank you for watching to the end with this one. I appreciate it. You can find me on Instagram, not anywhere else really. But if you're looking for banjo lessons, my email is in the description down below. And yeah, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. So have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.